class, welcome to week 4 of your hospitality facilities management class. This week I had to split the presentation up into 2 videos for the sake of time. So video number 1 will be guest room cleaning techniques. Video number 2 is chemical use and safety. This week I do want to make sure that you download the PowerPoint deck that is in Blackboard that matches this presentation. I'll go through this presentation pretty quickly just because there is a lot of information here. I also want to make sure that you do read the presentation and the notes section on each slide. Of course, some of the material will be on your quiz that you have in a couple of weeks, so make sure you review it. And of course, if you have any questions, let me know. At the end of this week, you'll be able to explain the systematic approach to cleaning a guest room, build a housekeeping cart and define its purpose and understand its importance. Understand what a room status report is and how it's used. Explain the steps to bed making. Learn how to inspect and identify bed bugs. Understand the steps to clean a bathroom, plus dusting and vacuuming. And explain what chemicals are used and their purpose and safety. So what is the importance of a clean guest room? Well, the experience that a guest has in their room can either make or break their decision to return to your hotel or another hotel within the same brand. Cleanliness is key in ensuring that a guest is comfortable, feels safe, and welcome while staying at your property. While a hotel may offer amenities that are revenue generating, the sale of guest rooms is the biggest revenue outlet and should always be in the best condition. Let's talk about housekeeping carts. A stocked and organized housekeeping cart will be the key to success for the room attendant. Every hotel is set up differently and may store their housekeeping carts in different areas. Typically, housekeeping carts are stored on storage closets on each floor. Any hotel that I've worked at, that's where the housekeeping carts have been kept. I've worked in select service hotels and I've worked in full service properties with hundreds of rooms, and there have always been storage closets on every floor where items are kept for the guest rooms, and the housekeeping carts were kept there as well, and that's where they were stocked. In my last hotel, that's exactly how we handled it. And the carts were kept in each closet. They could fit 2 to 3 carts. And the one thing about my property that we were very fortunate to have is that each housekeeper was able to have their own cart. So nobody had to share a cart. And if somebody was off one day, their cart wasn't used by another housekeeper. And we were just lucky enough that we had the budget that everyone could have their own cart. And I will say this, and this is based on experience and my team that I worked with at the hotel. Housekeepers take a lot of pride in their housekeeping carts and in the work that they do. So for my team, I felt it was really important that they are able to stock and organize and set up their housekeeping carts however it worked best for them. Of course, the carts, they need to be clean looking. I mean, guests do walk by them. They need to be organized, but I let them do what they wanted. So obviously they knew that they needed the correct supplies and amenities for the rooms, but I let them organize it however they were most comfortable. They're the ones using it. They're the ones doing the hard work. So whatever I can do to make their job easier, I am happy to let them do. So having them stock their own carts and take responsibility for them is what worked for them. So depending on the carts, they come in all different sizes and shapes. The cart on this screen is what I used at my hotel, very similar. This cart has a hook where you can hang a vacuum, and on the other side it has a bin. You can use this for trash by putting a trash bag in there, or you can use it for dirty linen. My housekeepers used it for trash. They would put a bag, and that was where they emptied the waste bins in the guest rooms. And then they had the vacuum that would connect, and they also had a broom and a mop, and that fit in there as well. And in my hotel, and this is different for every property, we did not stock sheet packs or duvet covers or duvet inserts in our carts. They're very heavy and they're bulky and they take up a lot of room. So they were always stocked in the storage closets on each floor. But what we were able to do is have our house person in the morning clean out the checkout rooms. So he would go into those rooms and strip the beds and put the laundry down the laundry chute. And so that helped in a lot of ways. One, if there wasn't any laundry yet, which is never the case. But if there wasn't, the laundry would make its way to the laundry room as soon as possible so that it could get washed. And the other reason is that it would cut down on time for the housekeepers themselves, so they wouldn't have to strip the beds. It was already done for them. And then the house person would just put the sheet packs and duvet inserts in the room, and then they would make the beds once they got to that room. Now on here you can see the typical items that are stocked on a housekeeping cart. I mean, obviously it varies by hotel, but this is pretty typical. And a best practice is to make sure the cart is restocked at the end of the day or at the end of the housekeeper's shift. This way it's prepped and ready to go for the next day. Okay, the room status report, or sometimes called the housekeeping report. It's a report that the housekeeping manager will print off each day in the morning, and it will tell them what rooms need to be cleaned that day and what the status is of each room. So depending on the day, they will be cleaning checked out rooms, meaning a guest has completely left the room, they're not coming back, and it needs to be cleaned. A stayover room, meaning the guest is staying another night or maybe more than one night, or a room that's due out. So due out means that the guest is going to check out that day, but they haven't told the front desk that they've left yet. So they could have left the room and just not told the front desk, but so they're still checked into the system, but they're physically gone. So that room needs to be checked. Or they left their key in the room and just left and didn't tell anybody. Or they're still in the room and maybe they're just not checking out until right until checkout time happens. So then the room will be cleaned after checkout time, unless they have a late checkout. It depends on the policy or the procedures of the hotel. In my hotel, it just kind of would depend on our schedule, but if I wasn't working or if I was starting later in the day, our night auditor would pull the room status report and assign rooms for whoever was scheduled to work that day. Hilton's system makes it pretty easy. It's an automated system where you just select the people that are working that day, and then the system will automatically assign rooms to the housekeepers, and it'll put them in order of floor, and it will time the rooms for you. So you don't want to assign them more than 8 hours worth of work. So the system knew how long it takes to clean a stayover, a checkout, and a suite and a standard room. So the system was able to calculate exactly how many rooms each person was going to get based on time. Now, if that housekeeping manager maybe didn't schedule appropriately, or maybe the hotel ran a higher occupancy than what was forecasted when the schedule was made, the housekeeping manager has to make the decision. Do they want to leave rooms dirty for the next day to clean, which is something I don't recommend? Does the housekeeping manager themselves want to take rooms to clean? Or do they want to let the housekeepers get overtime to clean up all of the rooms? Now, depending on the hotel and what's happening, they'll have to make that decision. So if the hotel is intended to sell out that day, they might have no choice but to let the housekeepers have overtime so they can get everything clean. If there's a group checking in and maybe that group contracted all of the double rooms, then they might need to approve overtime so they can make sure all of the double rooms are cleaned, or they might have to reconfigure the housekeeper's assignments to make sure that all of the double rooms are assigned instead of all of the king rooms. So it's, they have to pay attention to the schedule and make sure they're assigning rooms accordingly. During the planning stage of the housekeeping department, the housekeeping manager, along with the general manager, will establish a system or a set of guidelines for how a room should be cleaned. Having a systematic plan saves the housekeeper time and ensures that they won't overlook a task or clean an area twice. A logical progression for cleaning is the best way to ensure that a room is cleaned efficiently within the time allotted. So this is just a quick little chart that shows you the cycle of a guest room. So remember, before you enter a room, you need to knock twice and announce yourself. If nobody answers or opens the door, you can knock again and announce yourself. Again, if no one has said anything, you can use your key to open the room. And as you're walking into the room, make sure you announce yourself again. That person could be sleeping or maybe in the bathroom and they just didn't hear you. Once you've verified that the guest is in the room, you'll want to position your cart in front of the door with the supply access side facing the guest room. This serves three purposes. One, it allows the housekeeper easy access to their cart and supplies. 2, it blocks the entrance to possible intruders and creates a safety barrier. And 3, in case of stayovers, if a guest is returning to their room, the cart in front of their room will signal that you're in there. So maybe they'll go back to the lobby and just wait a couple minutes until their room is clean. Or if they try to move the cart, the housekeeper is alerted to that and then can ask the guests if they want them to stop or if they would mind waiting a couple minutes to finish. We'll dig deeper into safety and security later on in the semester. However, it should be noted that hotels have certain policies or procedures as it pertains to keeping a guest room door opened or closed during cleaning for the purpose of safety. Regardless of the hotel's policy or the housekeeper's preference, no hotel employee should ever let a guest into a room without verifying who the room belongs to. I honestly would tell my housekeeping team not to let any guests into a room. If a guest is trying to get into their room, then they should go down to the front desk, and the front desk will need to verify that guest with their ID, and then they can give them a key. The housekeeping team really isn't going to have a way to double check that guest's name on the reservation. It may or may not be on their room status reports, but it's not housekeeping's responsibility to let a guest in, even for the sake of customer service. We should always make sure that the front desk is checking that person's ID, and then they make the determination on whether or not it's okay to give them a key. Once the housekeepers entered the room, they'll need to turn all the lights on. This is so they can see, but also so that they can check any light bulbs that might be out. If there are any light bulbs that are out, they'll notate it on their housekeeping board, and then maintenance and the housekeeping manager will be made aware, and they can change those bulbs before the next guest. Next, they'll want to open the drapes or the curtains and check the cords for any damage. And if the windows can open, they'll open the windows to let some fresh air in. They'll also check the thermostat or the heating and AC unit to ensure it's working and set the temperature to what the property deems standard. Then they'll complete a visual inspection of the room and make note of any damaged or missing items. These will need to be written on their board and reported to the housekeeping manager. Now, side note, if damage is very severe, and this includes smoking in rooms, the housekeeping attendant will need to pause on cleaning that room and let the housekeeping manager know that there's significant damage. The housekeeping manager will want to come inspect it and probably take photos and document that there is damage, because it's likely the guest will be charged for it, and they'll need the backup evidence in case the guest tries to dispute the charge on their credit card. And then once they've done that, they'll give the housekeeper the all clear to go ahead and clean the room. Once they're in the room, they'll remove any trash, including room service trays and dishes. They will replace new liners into the trash cans. If the trash cans are dirty, make sure they're cleaned. If the room is a stayover, only the items that have made their way into the trash can should be discarded. If it looks like trash and it's sitting on the dresser or the nightstand and the room is a stayover, it should be left alone. Just because we think it's trash, it might not be trash to that guest and they might still need it. So only throw trash away if the room is checked out. If the guest has checked out, but they left items behind that are not trash, they should be noted on the housekeeping board, collected, and placed into a bag with the date and room number, and then given to the housekeeping manager or the front desk to document for their lost and found file. A pro tip for those of you who will become managers, it is important that your team, whether it's the front desk team or your housekeeping team or someone in food and beverage, if they find an item left in a guest room or a hallway or a meeting space, they should be honest enough to bring that item to the appropriate manager to be documented. Unfortunately, I have run into issues where things were taken from a guest room or left in a guest room and reported as lost and never found, right? We didn't find them when we cleaned the room, except several months later when we were cleaning out housekeeping carts, did we find the lost watch. So it is important that proper protocols are in place for lost and found items to protect the hotel and for good guest satisfaction. All right, we've collected our items, and so now the room cleaning can begin. Okay, bed making. This week there are a couple of videos in Blackboard that are from YouTube that go over some bed making processes. So make sure you watch those this week and make sure you pay attention to how each person moves around the bed and the flow that they take while they're making the bed. So I know when I make a bed at home, I'm all over the place, right? I'm here, I'm there, I move around. In a hotel, you need to be precise and quick about it. So typically you'll start one side, move your way down to the foot of the bed, and then go up the other side. And if you watch the videos, you'll see that's how they do that as well. When a room is a completely checked out room, all the linen is removed, including the duvet cover, but not the duvet inserts. The mattress pad or protector will need to be inspected. And if it's dirty, it needs to be replaced. All linen should always be kept on a clean surface and never placed on the floor of the room. Now, depending on how the beds are made in the hotel, and it will be to whatever the standards are, they may have a fitted bottom sheet or a flat bottom sheet. I personally prefer the flat bottom sheets. They do require a little more tucking and straightening and smoothing, but when it comes to laundry, they're easier to wash. And since they're all the same, you're not worrying that you're missing a bottom sheet but not a top sheet because they're all top sheets. The other thing is that the bottom sheets, they're elastic and they can shrink if they're not washed properly, and then they won't fit on the bed, or the elastic can become damaged if they're dried on too hot of a temperature, causing them to not fit on the bed. So my experience is the flat sheets have always been the better option, but it'll be up to the hotel and their standards on what they choose. So once you've made the bed and you've done all your tucking, you'll put your comforter or your duvet on top of it. The duvets are not the easiest thing to assemble, but once you do it a couple times, it gets easier. The housekeeping team, they're experts at the duvets. They work magic doing that. So that will be in one of your videos. Make sure you watch how they do that. Now, this might come as a shock, but hotels don't wash duvet inserts, comforters, bedspreads, blankets. They don't wash them after every checkout. They're typically washed once a quarter, or if they need to be washed, they'll be washed. It's just one of those things that we don't do because it would take up too much time, and a lot of energy and a lot of water and a lot of soap would be needed. Of course, if it's dirty and visibly dirty or has an odor, it needs to be replaced and washed. Once you've got your duvet or your comforter on, you're going to fold all your linen down 12 to 15 inches, and then that's where your pillows will go. You should always inspect your pillows before putting them on. They will have a pillow protector, and just like the mattress cover, if that is stained or has an odor, they need to be changed. If not, they can be used again, and then the clean pillowcases are put on top of it. Beds will be made to standard, so they might not all have the fold down technique where the pillows are placed on top. It just depends on the brand and how they make the beds there. Once you're done, you'll need to inspect your bed. Does it look neat? Are there any dusts or hairs? Some housekeeping carts are stocked with lint rollers. You might need to take one of those to the bed to get off any extra fuzzies that might be stuck there. Triple sheeting is another method or technique that we're seeing on beds. Duvet covers are pretty popular now just because they're easy to wash, they're not as bulky, they don't get as damaged easily, and they extend the life. The inserts last longer because we're changing just the protective layer, the duvet. So triple sheeting or the use of the duvet may increase the time it takes to make the bed. Room attendants should be trained on how to properly make a bed with either the triple sheeting or duvet method. It does take additional time, and that should be considered in the time allotment set for each room. Triple sheeting is using a third sheet as a layer of protection between the guest and the bedspread, comforter, or blanket. The reason behind this method is to avoid having to wash the bedspread, comforter, or blanket after every checkout. It also kind of makes the guest feel a little bit more comfortable because they've got something clean in between something that probably wasn't washed. But it does help prevent germs and soils, and then the blankets are replaced less frequently because they're not being as impacted. Gross. I know, bugs, gross. But if you are going to work in a hotel, especially if you're going to be in housekeeping, even if you're going to work at the front desk, knowing how to identify bed bugs is really important. The bed bug on your screen has bitten somebody, and you can tell that because of its red color. When bed bugs are first I guess, hatched in their life cycle. They are sort of white or translucent in color, and they're small. You can see them, but they're pretty small. And then once they bite somebody, that's when they start to grow because their bodies fill with blood, and then they turn this red color, and then they're super visible, and you can see them on a bed. I want to share with you though, one thing is that if you find bed bugs in a hotel, whether you're staying there or you work there, it doesn't mean that your hotel is dirty. Bed bugs are just a part of our industry, and in fact, they become a problem and can become a problem for anybody, even in their own homes. Even somebody who's just traveling, maybe they don't even stay in a hotel, maybe they're just visiting their grandma and they're flying somewhere. Bed bugs love luggage, and they can hop from one person's luggage to your luggage, and then you've got bed bugs. So they're just sort of a part of life. And as people who work in the hotel industry, we need to know how to inspect for them and how to treat them. So they are found in the worst hotels and the best hotels. They like to jump onto one person on their luggage and go for a trip. They're little hitchhikers. They're gross, they can be problematic, and they do require a lot of work to exterminate. Therefore, it's really important that everyone in a hotel know how to inspect for bed bugs and know what to do if they're suspected. During your career in the hotel industry, you will receive a complaint for bed bugs. Sometimes they're truly bed bugs, sometimes it's just a random critter that made its way into the hotel room and frightened the guests. Regardless, all bugs, especially if found in large quantities or repeatedly in rooms, should be taken seriously and reported to the housekeeping manager. Any type of pest complaint, from bugs to rodents, can be detrimental to a hotel's reputation. There's a video in Blackboard this week. It is made by Ecolab, and it shows you how to inspect for bed bugs. Now, a management tip I would like to share with all of you, if you become a manager in the hotel industry, if you're a general manager, housekeeping manager, executive housekeeping manager, front office manager, whatever management title you get in the hotel industry, you should have a treatment plan in your back pocket for a guest if bed bugs are confirmed in their room. Unfortunately, all too often do I encounter a client who says that they have bed bugs and they're confirmed bed bugs, but the hotel that they stayed at didn't offer them a treatment plan, didn't offer to take care of their items to ensure they don't bring those bed bugs home with them or bring them to their next hotel. And that's just not good customer service. So as a housekeeping manager, they will be responsible for knowing how to treat the bed bugs, which is typically with high heat, and making sure that there is something available to the guest for treatment. I wouldn't treat them in your own laundry room at the hotel. You don't want to spread them, but using the pest control company or a launderer is a great option for the guest. If the guest declines, that's okay. You did offer, but definitely have a backup plan for them. Take a moment, read through this slide, and make sure you watch the video this week. All right, let's talk about bathroom cleaning. So first we'll start with the bathtub and the shower. Bathrooms are cleaned in the following order. First, the shower or the tub, the vanity and the sink, the walls and the fixtures, and lastly, the floor. Best practice is to start from the top of the bathroom and work your way down to avoid dirtying areas that have already been cleaned. Another best practice is to flush the toilet first, then spray the appropriate toilet bowl cleaner into the toilet before any other bathroom cleaning begins. This way, the solution can sit for a few minutes to allow for an easier and more efficient cleaning when it comes time to clean the toilet. The room attendant will bring their caddy with their cleaning sprays into the bathroom with them, as well as any washcloths, rags, or sponges. They should be wearing proper protective gear when using chemicals, including gloves and eye protection, and guest towels should never be used for cleaning purposes. Gloves are really important. It's important that the housekeeping manager stock those, especially now for during COVID and flu season. It's important that they protect themselves. So a couple of tips for safety. We never want to stand on the edge of a bathtub to reach. The housekeeping manager should make sure that their team is equipped with proper extenders so that they can properly clean the items. If we're standing in the tub, we need to make sure we put down a cloth or a rubber mat or just something to prevent slipping. And of course, our housekeeper should be wearing non-slip shoes, but those should be placed on the floor of the tub. We want to make sure there's no hair left behind. That is a sign of a previous guest. And so the point of a quality inspection is to ensure that the guest room looks like a guest never was there. So that would be a failure. If a quality assurance inspector walked into a room and saw hair on the bathroom floor, they would fail that room because there's evidence of a guest. So removing hair is super important. Check for mold and cracked grout. Check the seal on it. If it's molded, it needs to be properly cleaned. And so you would alert the housekeeping manager, who would then have maintenance take care of that. Always check your drains for hair. You'll need to polish fixtures, soap dispensers, anything like that. Once an area has been wiped, it needs to be dried with a clean cloth to prevent spotting and residue buildup from your spray chemicals. Make sure you clean the outside of the tub and your shower door or shower curtain, and the floor of the tub should be dried last. All right, now we're moving on to our sink, vanity, and toilet. Using a toilet bowl scrubber, clean the inside of the bowl, including under the lip, and flush when complete. Spray the rim of the outside bowl of the toilet with the appropriate cleaner and clean that. You're going to work from the bottom of the bowl to the sides of the bowl and then down to the base of the bowl and then around the bowl on the floor. Clean the top of the toilet tank by spraying solution on your cloth and wiping. Once you've made your way over to the sink and vanity, you want to make sure you're checking the vents in the bathroom and the fans and make sure that they're clean. Make sure all the light bulbs are working. You're going to make sure you use the proper cleaning solution for the countertops, which we'll go over more in a couple of weeks. But if they're granite or marble, they might require a different cleaning solution than what you're used to. We want to make sure we keep those looking fresh. Again, the drains need to be cleaned, and we need to make sure that the drain doesn't back up. That's like a common problem in hotels. So if the drain is not draining properly, we need to let maintenance know so they can take care of that. And last but not least, we're going to clean the mirror with the appropriate cleaning solutions using a clean cloth so it's not streaky. The mirror sort of sets the stage for the bathroom, and so we want to make sure it's clean. Okay, so now we're on to the final touches as well as the bathroom floor. The bathroom floor can be a touchy subject. So your book and in my experience, housekeepers were trained to clean the bathroom floor by spraying it with their cleaning chemical and then getting down on their hands and knees and wiping it. Room attendants don't want to do that. They are working so hard as it is that having to bend all the way down on their hands and knees is just another task that can be eliminated. It truly can be eliminated. So at my hotel, the previous housekeeping manager had trained the housekeepers to clean the floors this way. And when I started working there, I noticed so much hair on the floors in the bathrooms, and I just didn't understand why. They had vacuums, they had brooms, they could clean the hair up. I didn't understand. So I talked to them, and they were just so honest and let me know that they did not like that they didn't have any tools to clean the floor, such as a mop. And I totally understood that because, at home, I don't get down on my hands and knees to clean my floor. I have a Swiffer. So I totally empathized with them. And I talked with my general manager, and we were able to buy them each mops with microfiber cloths. And so now all they had to do was, sweep the floor and spray their solution and then use the microfiber mop pad to mop the floor. And then at the end of the day, those could be washed, and then the next day they would grab their microfiber pads and reuse them. They're not expensive. They're easy to store. You can buy the ones that don't have solution attached, the ones you just spray your own bottle and clean it. And honestly, they were so happy to have that. It really made a difference in their day. I noticed an improvement in cleanliness right away. And if that was the one little thing I could do for them, then I was happy to do that. We also used the microfiber mops in our public areas. They make really large ones, and so that sort of replaced like your traditional mop and bucket. And of course, cleaning the floor is done last. Once everything's out of the bathroom and the amenities have been replenished, we'll do one more visual inspection, turn the light off, close the door, and move on. Okay, dusting and vacuuming. Dusting should be done in a systematic approach. The best way to do it is to work around the room clockwise. This will ensure a space or an item doesn't get cleaned twice or is missed. You always want to start with the highest surface and work your way down. Always use the best cleaning solution. Always spray onto your cloth dusting cloth first and then wipe your item or your counter. If you spray it directly onto an item, it could cause it to stain. What surfaces and items need to be dusted will vary based on the property and the room setup. Typically, the room attendant will dust picture frames, mirrors, headboards, bedside tables, clock windows, sills, etc. The TV should be cleaned with a microfiber cloth to prevent scratching. Don't spray chemicals directly onto the television. Also check doors, walls, air conditioning or heating units, a fan if there is one. And the next video that you'll watch, video 2, you'll learn about the types of cleaners. There are antibacterial and microbial cleaners that are all-purpose that can be used in rooms. That's what we used. So there's pretty good availability of options out there. They'll need to replenish the in-room amenities. Any collateral, any D&D signs, room service menus, coffee, mugs, ice bucket liner, dry cleaning supplies, count the number of hangers in the closet, make sure there's 10 or however many is deemed standard for the property. A big one is checking the in-room safe, making sure that the batteries are not low, that the safe is open and is ready for the next guest. Also checking the alarm clock. That's a big one. Making sure the time is correct and that the alarm is in off mode. We wouldn't want it to accidentally be set to 4 a.m. and then wake up the next guest who might not need to be woken up at 4 o'clock. Any things that are damaged, any rips or stains that couldn't be taken care of by the room attendant will be noted on the housekeeping board for the housekeeping manager to review and talk to maintenance about. Once the room is clean, they'll need to vacuum. That's always done last. So they'll start at the back of the room and work their way towards the door. Once that's done, they can mark that their room is clean on their board, or they can use the hotel's phone system if they have this set up where they enter a code into the phone and it signals to the PMS that the room is clean. And so once a hotel is in clean status, then the housekeeping manager knows that they can go ahead and inspect the room. And then once they inspect it, they put it into vacant ready status. And then that's how the front desk knows that they can assign that room to a guest. One more thing to mention, if a guest smokes in a room, whether it's a stayover room or the room is a checked out room, the housekeeper will need to let the housekeeping manager know that someone smoked in the room. And obviously, they smoked because you can smell it. The housekeeping manager will need to go into the room and document any evidence of smoking. So cigarettes, ashes, cigarettes in a cup, maybe burn marks, things like that. And they'll take photos of that. And typically that's, again, for evidence reasons. They'll probably charge the guests a fee for smoking in the room, and they need to have backup in case they try to dispute that charge. The room attendant can still clean the room as normal. They will use a special deodorizing spray that neutralizes smoke smell, and they'll also put an ozone generator or an ozone machine into the room once they're done. That machine takes a couple of hours to cycle through, but what it does is it removes contaminants, allergens, and odors from the fabric so that it gets rid of that smoke smell. Sometimes if the room was heavily smoked in, it might take a couple of cycles. But once it finishes, it usually does a pretty good job of bringing the room back to its normal smell. And then once it's done, you can take it out of the room, respray it with your regular deodorant, and it should be ready to go to another guest. Room inspections. So this, if you become a manager or a supervisor in the housekeeping department, you'll be doing a lot of these. At my hotel, I was the only one to inspect rooms. We only had one manager, and that was me. On my days off, my most senior housekeeper, her name was Laura. She would be my room inspector, and she was amazing. And so she would take over my duties for that day. Depending on how the hotel is set up, you might have like a physical paper checklist with your inspection items on there that you'll go through with each room and write the room number and check each item. But technology is amazing these days. So I mean, I haven't worked in housekeeping in a while, but even when I did, we had a tablet. That was my tablet, and it had an app where my management company had programmed and set up for us. And so the app had each room number on it. And so what I would do is when I went into the room, I would select the room number that I was in. It would pull up the inspection list. It was super long. It was over 50 items. And I would have to go through and inspect each item. There was a yes item or no. Yes meant the room was clean to standard or the item was clean to standard, and no meant that it was not clean to standard. And then there was also an area for notes. So if something wasn't done correctly, maybe they forgot to check the coffee pot and a Keurig pod was left in there. That's evidence of a guest. So that would fail an inspection. But maybe I found that. I would notate that. I would also notate things like carpet needs to be shampooed for a next project, or PTAC needs to be cleaned, or just various things that maybe maintenance should know. And then when I'm done, I would submit it, and it would save for that day. And then at the end of the day, the maintenance manager and our general manager would get a report, and they could review it if they needed to. These were kept on file, so we used them for evaluation purposes for our housekeeping attendants, and also for purposes of a guest, especially now with COVID, maybe they had scheduled a lengthier stay but ended up leaving early, but nobody knew that they left early because they didn't tell anybody, but their room was still being cleaned. We could see that the room was cleaned and then review our notes, whether or not it was a stay over in our system or a checked out room. It just kind of helps with bookkeeping purposes or record keeping purposes. Here are some room status terms. Some of these were given to you in week 1. There are some repeats here as well as maybe some new ones. Make sure you take a moment to review these. Okay, this is the last slide of this presentation. So now you'll go to video 2 in Blackboard, and that will be the chemical use and safety video. That one is much shorter. It's only about 7 minutes long. And again, thank you for taking the time to watch the videos this week. I know they're a little bit lengthier than normal, but there's a lot of really important information. Make sure you download the PowerPoint presentation and review the notes on there as well. And I hope you have a great week and enjoy video 2.